everyone, and welcome to the July 2018 update of the Power BI desktop. As always, we have lots of exciting features this month, but I am changing something up a little bit. I'm actually going to start with the modeling features this month. And that's because I'm just so excited about being able to finally share composite models with all of you. So Composite Models is a preview feature that we're releasing this month that lets you combine DirectQuery sources with other DirectQuery sources and also import in. So you can have as many DirectQuery sources and import tables as you want it to make your report. And so this is a really big step forward in terms of functionality. Up until now, if you want to use DirectQuery, you were stuck with whatever was in your DirectQuery source. And if you just needed to augment it with this one really quick import table, or you had some other data that was relevant in a different DirectQuery source, you weren't able to pull that in. And so we're very excited to finally have a preview for you to let you go beyond that. So let me walk you through how to use this feature. So right now, I have a report that is connecting to my bike sales data, and it's on SQL Server, and I'm using DirectQuery. You can see down at the bottom here, my storage mode is DirectQuery. And I'm going to want to augment that with a small table that I have that links the different products to a product manager who is supposed to be shepherding that product. And so if I switch over, you can see this data is all in Excel, and I just have an Excel table here. And I could choose to either import that into my PBX file through the Excel connector, or I could just say, let's just select it all, and I'm going to go and I'm going to just hit enter data and paste that in. Of course, if you were planning on updating this file, the right thing to do would be to import it so you can set up, refresh to pull from that file. But just for this demo, I'm going to just paste it in through enter data. This is my product manager table, and all I have to do is hit load. And whenever you do start to use composite models to connect multiple sources together, you will get this notification just letting you know that when you do that, there is a potential security risk just because queries from one source could get sent to the other source as well, which would be fine in a lot of cases within your company, but you should just make sure that you know that the admins and owners of both data sets have the same security levels and are okay being able to see the different queries passing through for both data sets. So that's just something to be aware of. In my case, it's just enter data, so that's not really a problem, and I'm going to hit OK. And now we're pulling in that data and creating that connection. And now you can see, here's my product manager table in. And the first thing you can notice is that we are in fact using composite models because the storage mode now says mixed. That's letting you know that there is both DirectQuery and other sources in. And you can also hover over the tables to see this information as well. So I can see the name of the table when I'm hovering over the tooltip, the type of storage mode, in my case import, and when it was last refreshed. And if I move over one of the DirectQuery sources, I can see the name of the table, that is DirectQuery, the source type, and also the source name. And so I get all this useful information for each of my individual tables. And like I said, you could also pull in other DirectQuery sources as well, so I'm going to do that as well. So if I go into Get Data, I can go into another SQL server from a completely different server, and I can pick DirectQuery, and I hit OK. And then right in here, I can pick the model that I want to use and pull in this table from this other source that has my targets for my sales. And all I have to do is I hit load. And then we're going to go through and we're going to create the connection to that DirectQuery source as well. And so you can see here when I hover over this table, it is in fact DirectQuery. So I have, in this one model, I have two DirectQuery sources and an import source as well. And not only can I import all those different tables together, I can also create relationships between them. So if I go into here, into my relationship view, I can go ahead and I can start creating connections. So I can connect my country code to my country from my sales table. And something important to know at this step is that whenever you're creating relationships using composite models, the cardinality is always going to be many to many. It's always going to be that way. And there are some details on what that means and what performance impact or other information you may need to know about that, you'll be able to find in our documentation. Just know for now, it's a many-to-many relationship, and you can go back and you can learn more about that if you're interested. So I'm okay with that, so I'm just going to hit OK. And now I have my relationship. And I could do the same thing with my other table as well if I wanted to. I could pull in, say, connect from my bike with the product name to my product manager, and I can connect those as well. Again, it's going to be many to many because I'm mixing those source types, and I hit OK. And now that's it. I have my data, my relationships are connected, and I can start using them like normal tables. So if I wanted to pull in, say, my target percentage and my country field from this other table, I can do that. And you can see those are different tables from different DirectQuery sources, but they existing on the same chart. And of course, I can cross-highlight between my data from this one DirectQuery source to the other, and the same would be true if I pulled in my, let's just say, my product manager name and just threw it on the legend real quick. Not the prettiest of charts, but I could do it. I can mix and match all these DirectQuery sources, import sources, create relationships between them, cross-highlight. I have all of the same functionality that I could have had if I was just using one DirectQuery source. I was just using the import table by itself. All of the functionality you expect for those types of tables still apply. And so we hope that this is going to be a huge step forward for those of you who are using DirectQuery, and that you just have so much more power in your model. There are two important things you should know other than the two things I've already addressed, which was that the relationships are always many-to-many and that the queries are going to be shared between the two sources. The other two things I would like you should know is that right now, during the preview period, we're only supporting DirectQuery to tabular sources. So if there's a multidimensional source that you're using DirectQuery to connect to, we don't yet support that. And secondly, during this early part of the preview period, you're not going to be able to publish your files up to the Power BI service. It can only be run and used in the desktop. So if you want to start trying out this feature, but you got to keep continuing to have your normal DirectQuery report refreshing and running in the service, the best thing to do would probably be able to just save a copy and try out these new features with it, and just continue to have the file that you are using right now for running your DirectQuery sources in the service. And like I said, those are some limitations we have right now in the preview. We will be continuing to work through those and have lots of new improvements are coming out in this area in the coming months. In the reporting section, our first feature on the list is a pretty major update to our visual header. We've gotten lots of feedback from many of you, the users, about the visual header. Things like it can sometimes get in the way because you can't put things to the top of the canvas. It doesn't match the theme of your report. Sometimes the icons can be hard to see on darker report themes, things like that. And so for a little while now, we've been working on a new and improved version of the visual header, and we're excited that we can finally release this to you. So if I jump over to my report, you'll see that this new visual header, by default, now shows up in line with the title. And what this lets you do is since it's in the title instead of a bar on top of the chart, it now lets you put things all the way to the top of your canvas. If you have a visual that doesn't have a title, like say a slicer, we instead will show the icons right above the visual. So basically the same location, just where the title would have been if you had one. And if you do happen to put, say, the slicer or like say a table or matrix, which also doesn't have a title by default, all the way to the top of your canvas, we will flip the icons down below the chart. Basically same position, but underneath. And so this is a lot more flexibility in where the header is going to show up, which enables you to take full use of your canvas. Another nice feature of this new visual header is, like I said earlier, it's highly formattable as well. So if you go to the formatting pane, you'll see that there's this new visual header card. And inside the card, the top bit of it has controls for how the icons look. So you can give the icons a background color. It also has a border if you want to change that to something different. And you can also control the transparency of these things. And even you could go in and you can set an icon color. And you also have individual toggles for everything that could possibly show up in the visual header as well. So, for example, if you want to have a hierarchy in your visual, but you don't want the drill icons to show up, you want that to be able to, you as the report author, drill down and then have the users not have those various drill up and expand options available to them, you can turn those icons off. If you don't want focus mode for your slicer, you can turn focus mode off. And so you have all of these different options for on and off toggles. And also per visual, you have the card as a whole, an on and off toggle. Now, this is an important piece to remember, that these on and off toggles are actually for consumption mode. So, for example, if I turn the header off from my slicer, you'll see that I still have the header available to me in the desktop, because in the desktop, you're always authoring. Now, if I publish this up to the service, you would then see that in reading mode, I wouldn't have these icons available. I would have to go into edit mode to get to them. And the reason we do this is that, for the most part, there are a lot of important options in the visual header. There's the drilling and sorting and see data, and a lot of the things that you really need to take advantage of as an author. And so we don't want to, just because you don't want your users to be able to pin, we still want to enable you to pin as an author, or you to set the sort order or drill. So just remember, as you're playing with all those on and off toggles, they are a consumption mode only thing. This new visual header experience is going to be on by default for all new reports going forward. If you do have an existing report, you're actually going to have to go and enable it. And the place you do that is through the File menu. So File, Options and Settings, Options. And then in this Options dialog, you'll see that there's at the very bottom, there's a Report Settings section. And in here, you'll see an option that says Use the Modern Visual Header with updated styling options, and you can check this box. And like I said, for all new reports, it's checked by default. But you can choose to check it, and if for whatever reason you don't like the new header and you want to go back to the old one, you can actually uncheck this and apply it and hit OK. And the reason we're choosing not to just enable this by default for existing reports is that due to the changes required for this new visual header, we're actually going to be squishing your background image just a little bit. It's like about 20 pixels. And so that could mess with the layout of your report a little bit, especially if you have a report like I do, where the background image is actually what I'm laying my visuals on. It would be pretty upsetting for me if all of a sudden the background image was a little misaligned to my charts. So we're letting you, as the report author for existing reports, go in and enable it and realign your visuals to work with your new layout for your report. So make sure to try out this new visual header and let us know if you have any more feedback. We do believe that this is a much better experience, much more flexible, much more formatting control. And so we're excited to hear what you think and to hear about any more feedback you have for us and a maybe future improvement for the visual header. The next feature on our list is a feature we're calling Wallpaper. And basically this is, that grayish area that your report kind of floats on top, and sometimes it's barely there, or sometimes it's, there's gray bars on the side of your reports, all depending on the size of your canvas and also the proportions of your screen. There's your screen resolution and all of that can come into play and how much of that gray space you see. We're actually going to now let you format that gray space is what we're calling wallpaper, and you'll be able to set colors and images similar to what you can do on your page background. So let me show you that. So like I said, this little gray area outside of my canvas, which I can actually, if I collapse my page, you can see a little bit better. There's this gray area. That's what we're calling the wallpaper of your canvas. And it always it's whatever fills the void around your report page whenever you are viewing your report. And per page, you can go in, and in the formatting pane, whenever you have no visuals selected, right under page background, you see the wallpaper option. And in here, you can do things like set a color for it. So if I wanted to, say, set it to a similar bluish shade to my background, I could. And now, no matter how I'm viewing my canvas, you can see it kind of has a more blended look to it. You know, it doesn't seem so out of place that it's floating on this gray space. You can also set, you can control its transparency, and you can also set images for it. So, for example, the way this report's set up is that there's, in addition to this overview page, a page per region as well. And so if I switch over to my Great Britain page, what I've done is I've actually have a photo that I actually took when I was in London of the London Tower Bridge, and it is filling up the whole wallpaper. And the page background is 100% transparent. So that made the page transparent, and the wallpaper is showing through that. And because it is just how much of the image shows is all dependent on the position of your canvas and the size of it. You can see as I move my canvas around with this image and the fit that I have, which is a normal fit versus fit or fill, I am seeing more of the image in this case versus compared to whenever my my canvas can fill more of the screen. And so this is a really nice feature to just let you control even more how your page looks. You can use it to do something like this and have like an image that's just filling the space available. You could use it to basically make your canvas feel like it's always filling the space available. You know, there's lots of different options for that. Another thing to know is that by default, new pages are going to have a new default going forward. So in my report, because it's an existing report, it's not going to see it by default. But if you create a new report from scratch, the default, because we really like this wallpaper and the feeling it gives you of almost like the report's always going to be filling the whole space available, is that we're going to actually have the canvas be 100% transparent and the wallpaper we're going to have being white. Something else you notice is that you may have noticed when I made my page transparent, as soon as I went over 50% transparency, I actually got this dotted line. And this is just to tell me where the edge of my page was. If I was, somewhere around, around 48, you can see that the boundary of the page is pretty much disappearing because it's getting so transparent. So what we do is about 50% kicks in, we turn on this dotted line, and it is purely for an authoring experience so that you can see where the boundary of your page is. When you save your report and view it, publish it up and view it, the consumers will not see this dotted line. It's purely just for you, the author. And like I said, this 100% transparent page with a white wallpaper is the new default going forward for new pages, so that you can take advantage without having to do anything of this new feature, filling up the whole area of the available space for both your page and the space around the page as well. We also have a theming update this month, with this month focusing on both visual and page level control. So up until this point, through previous updates of theming, we've allowed you to be able to format most of the styling capabilities of a visual in the formatting pane. But what we call the container level settings weren't yet formattable. And what those features are things like the title and the border and the background color, which are consistent across all the different chart types. It's the thing that the visual is kind of like sitting in, the title and the border, the thing UI around the visual. That's called the, like I said, the visual container, and those features were not themable until now. Now you can theme the title, the border, things in the general card, all that stuff, plus the page level settings, which is the page background and transparency, and this new wallpaper feature that we just talked about. So if I go and look at a JSON file, here is all those new visual styles that you can now do. You can do, like I said, the title, the background. You can turn lock aspect ratio on and off, border, our tooltip control, and also pick a style preset for your table and matrix. And like I said, page background and outspace is what we call wallpaper in the theme. And for both of those, you can do the color and transparency. So like I said, you can now have control over this in your theme file. You can write a JSON that take advantage of some or all of these. And by doing this, we've now pretty much closed the gap on all of the visual formatting features to include in theming. The only ones left at this point are now the data-bound properties like data colors, which we really can't do through a theme file anyways because you do need the data to fill in those cards and decide what's possible in them. So make sure to try out these new features. Oh, and as a reminder, if you do what we call triple wildcard, which is a little asterisk all the way down, so even where there's title, whenever you have something set up like that, so for example, in this other theme I have, the font family is a case of this with the triple wildcard. That means it's going to affect everything, and that every single visual and every single card that has whatever property is in there is going to be affected by that theme that you just defined. So, for example, if you had set a triple wildcard for color, now whenever you get down to page, that color is also going to be affected by that as well. So do remember, if you triple wildcard something, make sure that you're comfortable with that automatically just applying to any newly formattable properties as well. We've had a few people be surprised that all of a sudden their page background's a different color. That has been because of the theme file they set up triple wildcarding color all the way down. So that's just something to watch out for. The next two features I'm actually going to cover together because they both involve tooltips. So when we introduced report page tooltips, several months ago, I believe back in March, and one of the most requested upgrades people have been asking for, improvements for it, was the ability for those tooltips to show on a table and matrix. So we wanted to tackle that. And it took us a little bit because there's actually some steps we had to take. Our report page tooltips are actually built on top of Power BI's default tooltip infrastructure. So, when you hover over a chart, you get our nice dark gray, blackish color tooltip with white text. We built on top of that to build out report page tooltips. And since table and matrix didn't support the Power BI's default tooltips at the time, we weren't able to add report page tooltips to them either. So we actually ended up building out both of those features. So you can now have, for table and matrix, both the default Power BI tooltip if you want, and also you could use report page tooltips with table and matrix. We also, as part of this, we wanted to make sure to not change anyone's reports by default. We always aim to do that. So we didn't want to just start turning on these tooltips for people automatically. So what we did was adding on to the same tooltip UI that we already had for, all the other charts for report page tooltips. We added a toggle there so you could turn the tooltip on and off for table and matrix. It defaults to off, so you're not getting our tooltips, so the reports all look the same, but you could turn it on to get either the default tooltip or take advantage of report page tooltips. And since we were adding the on and off toggle for table and matrix, we figured why not add that toggle for all visuals, which was actually another common request we heard, which was to turn tooltips off for a given visual. So altogether, we have some pretty big improvements for tooltips this month. So let me show you walk you through these tooltip changes. So if I go over to my Great Britain page, both of these two tables have the tooltips turned on already. So you'll see on this right one, when I hover over it, I'm getting now the Power BI tooltip. And that's because in the tooltip card, in the formatting pane that we now have, I chose to turn tooltips on. Like I said earlier, it's going to be off by default, so you are going to manually have to turn this on. But now I have my nice Power BI tooltip, which is nice in the table. It's even nicer in the matrix because if you have a matrix, we're going to give you all the headers in the tooltip, so you don't have to move your eye a lot around to read what headers are for a given point. For this table on the right, as I hover over the data points in this table, I'm able to see my report page tooltip. And that's because, just like in the other table, I had turned the tooltip card on. And not only that, I have a tooltip page that I have set up to be tied to this table. So in the formatting pane, in the tooltip, I have manually set the report page to that tooltip page I made. And table and matrix support the report page tooltip just as well as all the other chart types. They can both be manually assigned a tooltip page, and also they can get a report page tooltip through linking of the tooltip pages. Like I said, we added this on-off toggle to the tooltip card for all charts. So if I go over to this column chart, of course we get the Power BI tooltip here, but I can actually go and I can turn off that tooltip as well. And now whenever I hover over a given bar, I get no tooltip, which was again a ask we heard for charts as well. So make sure to give this a try and let us know if you have any more feedback for report page tooltips. We have a pretty exciting update for accessibility this month as well. This month we have added keyboard navigation and screen reader support for interacting with all of our core slicer types. So all of the slicers that come with Power BI by default. You can now change the slicer values, hear what's selected and what's not, all just using a keyboard and a screen reader. So let me flip back to my report, and you can see that I have a slicer here. And just as a refresher, you can always just hit tab to move your focus between each of the different visuals in your report canvas. And so if you land on a slicer and you decide that you want to change its value, all you need to do is hit Control right arrow key. And then you'll notice that the focus has now moved onto the eraser, which means that you can now clear the slicer selection with, say, the spacebar. And then you can, now that you're inside the slicer, through that Control right arrow key, you can tab to the other options. So I can tab to the drop down, I can tab to each of the input boxes, so I can type in, let's say, 3, and then tab over to the 7 and change that to 5 and set my slicer state there. I can use the drop down to change to, let's say, the list slicer. And then if I go here, I can then go tab into the and tab my focus to the list of available options, and then use my arrow keys to move between each of those and set a specific one. And of course, Control space would select multiple if that was something I wanted to do. And again, hit tab, clear it. Let me just set it back to my between. And then all I have to do to move back my focus out of the slicer is hit the escape key. And once my focus has moved out of the slicer, it's now back on the slicer as a whole, and I can continue to just tab to all the different visuals in my report page. And so this is just a really nice, easy way if I am a user who needs accessibility, or if I just like using keyboard navigation to change things. I can do that now with my slicer. And of course, if you're using a screen reader, that whole experience would be narrated appropriately by the screen reader. It'll tell you what you're on, appropriate information, lets you know when you change things, all the stuff you would expect from a screen reader. Next up is some general design improvements for our formatting pane. We know a lot of users spend quite a bit of time in the formatting pane. If you're a heavy author, you're going to be, turning titles on, renaming things, changing colors. You're going to be spending a lot of time in there. Our formatting pane hasn't really been, revamped in quite a while. And it just really wasn't, with the number of formatting features we now have, it just wasn't really scaling well. And so we've been wanting to do something to it for quite a while, we just haven't had the time. Well, we had a new developer recently join our team, and we decided this would be a really good project for her, just, jumping in and learning more about Power BI and how to develop on it. So we actually had that new developer go in and just make a lot of design improvements to the pane. So if I go over to the formatting pane, you'll see that for each of the cards now, the color inside the card is a lighter shade of gray to the darker one, which does help with readability. You can actually tell where the card content starts and ends really easily. You also see that we have now a lot of nice hover effects for things, which does help with just like making it feel better, more modern and just overall a nicer experience. And we also had gotten a lot of complaints that with our old design where the name of a control and the control were in the same line, that it was causing the name of the control to truncate really early, and you would end up in situations where you really couldn't read any of the names of the controls without hovering over them for the tooltip. So what we've done is we've now put the control right underneath the name, which gives us the full length of the pane to really give you the name and make it just a lot easier to read. I mean, you can tell in certain cards, like say the x-axis, just how much better this is. You have the nice hover effects, like I said, the settings like font family and display units. Those are the kinds of things that, especially in the y-axis with our like minimum category width and inner padding and things like that, those were definitely the things that were truncating. And now you just really have a lot more room to read and also use the controls. So we're very happy with this latest update in terms of our formatting pane. We think it's going to make it a lot nicer to use going forward. We also have a couple of updates for our line and combo charts. The first of which is that we now support for the line in a line chart and in combo charts to have a stepped layout to it. So normally whenever you have a line chart, you have each point across your x-axis and we just, straight connect each of the given points. But with a stepped layout, you're going to have, instead of the points just being directly connected, there's like a sharp drop-off or sharp increase in between those two data points. So let me show you that. So if I take this combo chart, and so I have my line of units, and in the formatting pane under the shapes card, I can go in there and I can turn stepped on. And now you see that the line, it has sharp drop-offs that will show you the increase or decrease between any two points across the x-axis. And like I said, you can have this layout for both the line in the combo chart and lines in the line chart. And there's a couple of different step layouts that exist. And the one that we've picked to implement first is this one that you see here, where the drop or the change in height, whether it's a drop or an increase, happens right in between the two data points. So if I real quickly just turn on the markers, you can see the drop is happening at the midpoint. The second feature is another update to our combo chart data labels. So if you recall, last month we added the ability to format each of the measures in the combo chart, whether it's multiple measure lines or measures in the bars, any of the measures, you could format the data labels for those separately. And we had all the different formatting options, but we heard right away from several people in the comments that you also wanted the ability to turn them individually on and off. So we followed up real quick and we added that in right away. So if I go into my data labels card and turn that on, you'll see that I have for each of the lines, you can see here there's the customize series, which is what I turned on to be able to format each of the different measures, in my case sales amount in units. And under each of those drop downs you have the show toggle, which will let you turn whatever measure you're currently formatting on and off. So I can have the numbers for the line and not have any data labels that are off for the bar if I want. And so that was a really good feature that people asked for immediately in the comments, and since it was easy for us to do, we just went ahead and added that in as well. The last reporting feature this month is an improvement around sorting. Our sorting UI has been known to be a little bit confusing for new users because it looked like one item in the flyout for the menu item flyout, but really there's a separate 2 buttons there that just looked the same, one to pick what you're sorting by and one to pick the direction. It was kind of confusing for new users, and whenever we looked at it from an accessibility standpoint as well, it was just not accessible at all for keyboard navigation. So what we did was we chose to separate out each of those controls. So you have a separate control for sorting the direction from the control that lets you pick what you sort by. So for any chart that you can sort, you'll now see in the menu that you have the option to pick sorting ascending and descending right in the menu, and separately you can go in and you can pick to sort by whether it's class or sales amount in my case, whatever fields you have available to sort by in your chart. And so this is just another little small improvement just to make Power BI a little bit more usable for those common tasks like sorting. Under Analytics, we have a new option for our Insights feature, a new type of insight that you can find called Distribution Factor. And the Distribution Factor insight is all around saying, like, if I was looking at this column chart and I wanted to know if I apply a different set of filters to it, would the distribution of the data across my columns change? That's what this insight can answer. So for example, if I go over to my report, and let's just say I'm looking at this column chart right here. I right-click on this data point, and I want to analyze to see if the distribution of my sales across the different categories changes in anywhere. So I'll go and right-click Analyze, and I say find where this distribution is different. And then it will start doing the analysis behind the scenes and running all the different machine learning stuff and AI things behind the scenes. And then it will populate the dialog with a couple of different suggested insights for me. So you can see this chart is actually showing that if I was to filter by stock type, I would actually get, this would be the thing that affects my distribution the most. And you can see that in this chart, it's a combo chart, and it's using that stepped line feature I showed earlier. This stepped line is representing the distribution for my original chart, and you can see that by comparing it with the chart on the right you can still kind of see behind the pop-up that that's the same distribution. But as I change between the 3 different stock types, mid, low, and high, I can see the distribution of the data across those is very different. And so I'm able to play with the different values of that filter and do some comparisons. Since this is an additive measure, something else I can do is decide if I want to be comparing based off proportions or overall numbers. So that's basically saying, do I want to see the values in 2 axes, or do I want to compare them all in 1? So in this case, when I'm comparing proportions, I have 1 axis for my sales amount for the filter that I'm applying, so sales amount for low, and then I have my overall sales amount for that gray original distribution on the right axis. But if I turn this off, I can actually see the I can have them both sharing the same axis and see the absolute values. And the reason we like to provide this to you is because sometimes, depending on what filters you're applying, the overall numbers can be very different, and so it can be sometimes hard to see those. Whereas if you're comparing by proportions, it's better for seeing the different trends, but it can sometimes lose the effect of how different the total amounts are between the filtered and the non-filtered. And once I decide I like an insight, of course, I can go ahead and hit the little plus button, and it will add that chart to my report. And I can then, it's just a normal report, I can format it, I can do whatever I want to it, I can change the filters, just use it just like anything else, cross-highlight, format it, or in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. And I can then go back into my insights and continue to scroll through all the different options and find other things that are interesting to me. And as a reminder, this feature is available for consumers as well. The only difference is if you're editing the report, you get that plus button to add it to your canvas, whereas if you don't have edit permissions and you're just consuming it, you can view the insights, but you can't add them to your canvas. So this is just another way that we're trying to take our insights feature another step forward and make it help you find even more interesting insights in your data. For our custom visuals section, before I jump into the new custom visuals for this month, I'm going to talk about 2 new custom visual related features that we have. The first is there is now a Power BI certified custom visual category in the custom visual store. So let me show you that. So if I go to Front Marketplace in Power BI, I'll be able to see the visuals that have been certified in 2 different ways. One is that any custom visual in the list that has been certified has this little blue check mark letting you know that it is indeed certified, which if you don't remember means that it has met extra code requirements and testing by the Power BI team, so it's kind of like extra approved. And so like I said, you'll be able to see this blue check mark. Additionally, if you just want to filter to all of the certified visuals, you can pick under the category Power BI certified and you get the full list of them. A lot of users like to try and use a Power BI certified visual if they can for their needs. So this is a great, easy way to find the whole list of certified visuals. The second custom visual related feature is the ability to disable specific organizational visuals. So if you don't remember, organizational visuals are custom visuals that someone in your IT department, probably your admin, said that I approve of this custom visual to be used freely within my organization and I'm going to mark it as such. And if you do have organizational custom visuals, you'll be able to find them in that same store gallery that I just showed you a second ago. And they're really great because you know they've been approved by your company. This month, we are extending that to allow admins to also disable specific organizational custom visuals. So a user in the admin portal will be able to go in and say, I no longer want this visual to be an organizational visual, and disable it. And once they've done that, that custom visual will no longer work in any reports, either in the Power BI service or in the desktop when the user is signed in. So as soon as admin flips the switch, the next time the report is opened, either through refreshing the browser window or just navigating to it, or opening the file in the Power BI desktop, that very next time a user will see a warning letting them know that their admin has disabled this custom visual. The first of the custom visuals we're going to talk about this month is the Visio custom visual, which is going generally available this month. As a reminder, the Visio custom visual is basically a hookup between Power BI and the Visio product. And Visio lets you create basically diagrams, and when combining that with Power BI, you're able to create these really dynamic illustrations that are dynamically changed based off of the data in your report. So you're able to make your Visio diagram, hook it up to actual data points in your model, and as you cross-highlight between the two, they both become interactive. You can see colors change on the Visio diagram, other properties update as you're actually filtering your data. It's a really powerful integration between the two products. The custom visual had released back in August as a preview, and they've been iterating on it ever since, and they are very excited to now announce it as generally available. Some of the exciting updates they have for making it for the GA of the feature is that it now has mobile support, so you can render it in our Power BI mobile apps. You can also change out the embedded Visio diagram in the visual to a different one, and also copy the link of the embedded Visio diagram. They also have added control for the auto zoom setting, so as you are cross-highlighting and cross-filtering, you can choose to either turn on or off the zoom to narrow down in that data point or not. You can also it also has support for layers, which allows you to support complex diagrams and improve the performance of the Visio visual in your report. Let me walk you through one example of the Visio diagram real quick. This is the Visio visuals sample file on app source. You can see they have lots of tabs to walk you through a lot of different examples down here. I'm just going to walk you through this one page, which is the organizational performance. And you can see there is a Visio visual that hooks up to all the different executives in my company. You can see the hierarchy of them, you can see a picture, their name, and how much revenue they've been generating. And it's mapped to fields in my data, so I'm able to actually cross-highlight. So for example, if I wanted to just focus on my ADATM product, I can see a green outline around the people who manage that product. And true is if I switch over to Prosware or Litware, I can also filter by different months. And as I do that, I can see the revenue updating in my chart to tell me how much revenue each of the different parts of my org tree are generating for that month. This is just one simple example, but like I said, this file is filled with so many different scenarios that you could use this visual for, so I definitely recommend downloading the sample file and walking through a couple of the different examples they have. The Mapbox custom visual is going generally available this month as well. So if you don't know what Mapbox is, it's a company that provides powerful mapping and location tools meant for BI. And their goal is to allow people to create beautiful maps, and they're very developer friendly. So they have lots of location data, APIs, SDKs, all that good stuff, so that you're free to kind of focus on designing and building the best map for your application. And in terms of Power BI integration, back in March, they released a preview custom visual that lets you take advantage of their powerful mapping capabilities inside your Power BI reports. And this month, in addition to going generally available, they have a great new feature set as well. Let's take a look at a Mapbox sample to walk you through some of those new features. So this visual right here is, in fact, the Mapbox custom visual, which you can get like any other custom visual from our store. And you can see right away one of their new features this month. One of their new features is that you can now have choropleth maps, so that you can actually have like regions filled in with different colors. They have support out of the box for countries and regions, U.S. states, and U.S. postal codes. And you can also do custom regions as well that you define. And if you need some specific region and you want to work with them with that, I know they are available for that as well. In this dataset, it's currently using countries, and you can see they have a nice little hover effect for all the states, not countries. They're using states, and you can have nice little hover effects for all the different states where you can see the name and the acres, in this case, that have been affected by wildfires. And I can also take advantage of one of the other new features that they have, which is cross-highlighting and filtering using the Mapbox visual as a source. So if I click on say, Oregon, I'm able to filter the other visuals on my Power BI report. This isn't supported on every custom visual, and they put in some good work this month, or for this month's release, to be able to allow the Mapbox custom visual to support cross-highlighting other visuals. You can do it on the choropleth map, and you can also, if you're using the circle layer that they have already, you can click on those points as well to cross-highlight. With the choropleth map, another great Power BI feature they've now integrated in is drilling. You can see that in my hierarchy for this map, I have the state, the county, and an individual fire ID, and I'm able to using the drill experience that we have built right into Power BI, I can move between those layers. I can go from states to all of the different counties that have been affected by wildfires, all the way down to this custom layer that shows all of the different wildfires right on the map. So you can see that I can mix and match between the custom and the built-in ones. And with the drilling functionality, you're really able to take advantage of getting exact locations that match the data that you want. Another great feature related to cross-highlighting that they have is they now also have a lasso select experience. So you're able to, either using this lasso tool, I can click and draw around, say, these counties, and now I've cross-highlighted everything that was inside the region I circled using my lasso select. They also have a polygon experience as well, so that I can, instead of having like a freeform lasso, I can build out a polygon to cross-highlight with. Also, part of their general availability is that they've extended the types of browsers that they support. Previously, during the preview period, it was mainly Chrome and Firefox, but with this GA, they've extended to IE 11, Edge, and Safari as well. So they have support for basically most major browsers as part of this general availability release. So hopefully you can see that they've done a lot of work. It was already a powerful visual during the preview period, but between then and now, they've done a lot of work to extend it with the chloropleths and the drilling and the lasso select. It is a really powerful and highly customizable feature, a visual. And don't forget, you can also take advantage of all of the great stuff that Mapbox has, like Mapbox Studio. It's a really powerful tool that lets you really design the map that works best for your data. Our next custom visual is the DataText Box custom visual. And this custom visual is all around being able to display dynamic data directly in a text box. Let's walk through the sample. So you can see this visual right here is the dynamic text box visual that they have. And it has things like little animated emojis and text that is written out, and also dynamic values based off of the data that you assign it. So like, for example, this months are pulled out from the month field, the precipitation and evaporation is pulled out from the some other fields in the model as well. And of course, like I said, this is dynamic based off of your data. You can, just to give a quick peek of their edit functionality, you can find it in the ... and you can click edit, and you can see here it is very dynamic because you can write out exactly what you want it to do, and it has, in addition to being able to write out the text, you can also view the data from here as well that's going to be pulled in, and also get a little preview of it. So you're able to see 3 different modes here in the full screen edit experience. So it's, like I said, it's a very powerful custom visual because you have full control over how it looks. And the last custom visual this month is a China scatter map. So you may have seen in the past couple of months there have been various versions of a China supported map custom visual, and this one is the latest iteration of that. So you can see here they have a China map that shows the different regions of China, and you can hover over it and get a tooltip and hover effect. And there also are little pie charts that show up on top of the map, and they have nice little hover effects and data labels themselves as well. So if you are in China and you wanted a map that can represent these little pie chart data on top of the different points, you should definitely try out this China scatter map which may work really well for you. Under data connectivity, we have updates for 3 different connectors this month. First of which is the IBM DB2 connector. We have added DirectQuery support for this connector. This is a preview feature, so you're going to have to go and enable into the options dialog. But once you do, and you select the IBM DB2 database connector under Get Data, you'll see an option for DirectQuery right next to the import option you're already used to. We also have 3 updates for the Web.Example connector, which, if you remember from about 2 months ago when we announced it, allows you to pick any website like Wikipedia or Billboards.com or any website you want to pull data from, and just start typing examples of the table you want to build, and we'll look at the website and detect what you're trying to do and apply our smart detection algorithms on top of that HTML page to generate the entire data set for that website. So we have 3 improvements for this web connector this month, the first of which is support for importing multiple custom tables. This will allow you to enter the extract table using examples dialog from the navigator dialog multiple times, allowing you to create as many custom tables as you want. Secondly is the automatic completion for specifying sample values. So this is going to be very similar to our add column from example experience. As you type examples of what you want, you're going to see pop up different samples and allow you to pick from the list of stuff that we have recognized and discovered for you, which will make the filling experience even faster. And lastly, you can now import data from attribute selectors by using the Web.BroswerContents function. And the last connector update this month is for SAP Hana. Now the SAP Hana variable experience in the navigator in the Edit Variables dialog has been enhanced by leveraging SAP Hana's variable metadata regarding default values and to auto-populate the variable input controls, which is a pretty exciting update for SAP Hana users. That's all the features for this month. Be sure to let us know in the comments what you think of them and if you have any other future updates that you would like to see as well. And as a last note, I just wanted to let everyone know that next month we'll be back to our regular schedule of shipping the first full week of the month. So you'll see another desktop update in about 2 weeks. So I'll see you there.